provide jobs and livelihoods. This is what South Africans want. We are the African National Congress, and we've been serving the people of this country for the past 27 years. Vote ANC, Amandla! Amandla! Want water, electricity, sanitation, and refuse removal. Our people want protection against crime and gangsters. People want local government to deliver services that they need and support the local businesses that provide jobs and livelihoods. This is what South Africans want. We are the African National Congress, and we've been serving the people of this country for the past 27 years. Vote ANC, Amandla! Amandla!
Good evening and welcome to another edition of ANC News. I am Penny Libiani. In the last few days of the election campaign, we are delighted to welcome Minister Lindiwe Zulu, Minister of Social Development, member of the National Executive Committee and chairperson of the Subcommittee on International Relations, to our studios. Good evening, Minister, and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Penny, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
So you have been on the ground as part of the campaigning trail across the country. You've been to places like the Free State, Uppington in the Northern Cape. I mean, how's the mood on the ground, and what are some of the concerns that communities have raised when you've interacted with them?
The communities want councillors to be accountable, first and foremost. They want people that they know they can rely on. They want people that can always come back to them to explain when things are going okay, even when things are not going okay. People want to build confidence between their representatives who they've selected through a very rigorous process. But most of all, people want service delivery. They want to see the difference between what has been happening in the past and what is going to be delivered. In other words, they just want you to come with a manifesto, and they want that manifesto to be implemented. They don't want manifestos that are making promises that cannot be kept. That's what the people want on the ground. They want a change in their lives for the better.
So talking about the manifesto, which this year's theme is in building better communities. So it speaks about rooting out the high level of violence against women, which we've witnessed in recent times, especially during COVID. And you've spoken out against GBV on countless occasions, yet the scourge, persists in our country. What are some of the measures, that are being put forward when you look at the manifesto and how that can be carried through?
The measures have really been countless. If you think of what government plans are, from even having a department which is headed by Comrade Maite Nkwane Mashabane, a department that is supposed to respond on issues of women, youth, and people with disability. Countless, because if you look at even the programs that the justice system has in responding to those issues. Countless, because if you look at what the police, in the form of the minister and the minister's office and the department, the plans that they have to assist in ensuring that we fight the gender-based violence, we fight the scourge, as it is called. But also there are countless, if you look at also even the last national conference that took place, and there were decisions that were taken and delivered to President Cyril Ramaphosa as in the national strategy for countering gender-based violence. So I can say measures are countless, but the scourge persists. It is for this reason that as a Department of Social Development, for instance, we believe that we need to take this to the streets. We need to take this house to house. We need to take this community to community. We need to also involve other role players, such as the churches, such as the schools, such as the NPOs and NGOs. But this has to be consistent. It mustn't happen because some woman has been killed somewhere and we all get up on that day, we march, we walk, we do everything, we write placards and all. We need to focus on behavioral change and make sure that we've got programs that will have a greater impact on children, youth, women themselves, men in particular. And again, if you look at what some men have stood up to do, there's quite a number of organizations where men have stood up and said, not in our name. But it goes beyond a man saying, not in our name. It means, what does the man do when he wakes up in the house? Does he really take a responsibility of taking care of everything? Even if the man is alone, maybe he doesn't have any partner nor children, do men stand up together with us as community in general to say, beyond saying not in our name, what are their actions on day-to-day basis? Hence our belief that if we stepped up on the behavioral change issue and involve, as I said, the religious community and all, including the traditional leaders in areas where the traditional leaders are in charge. But look, Penny, it starts with the behavior of each and every one of us in our home, on the streets, at workplace, at schools, and everywhere. If we can't deal with that, we will continue making decisions, taking resolutions, but not making the necessary impact on it.
What about government integrated plans and maybe like, you know, the business communities? Do you get to engage those as well?
Yes, absolutely. Remember that the national strategy that I was talking about even created structures that involve the private sector working together. And again, even with the private sector, Penny, if there is no consistency in the work that we do, if in the private sector itself, there's no way that when women are going to work, they are taken care of at work, they are not abused even at the workplace. So when all is said and done, this is a national tragedy. This is a national problem which can be resolved by all of us being collectively taking responsibility, but also integrated in our work. Because in many instances, you would find that justice is doing what it thinks it needs to do, police think they're doing what they need to do. Quite frankly, I was very happy this last week when we were in Uppington, because I found that the government working together in an integrated approach. We had the police, we had the Hawks, we had justice, we had health, we had education, we had the Department of Social Development, all acting in one with a very impactful plan, which also took to the community, because prior to my arrival, the department itself had arranged community engagements, workshops within communities. They took it down to the communities themselves. And so by the time we got there, they had done a lot of work within the communities. Because if you don't bring the community along and you think you can be able to do it for them, you're making the biggest mistake. The closest that we can get to it is to get neighbors to talk to each other, is to get house to house, knowing what's happening in the next house, and not closing your ears and your eyes when you can see that woman walking out of the house, knowing perfectly well that you heard the screams, but you decided not to do anything about it.
So talking about the screams, one of the challenges as well is, like, you know, those women who are in distress, you know, if there are some men as well who might find themselves in the situation, when it comes to shelters as well, accessibility to that, what is the conversation around that? Do we have enough? Is there plans towards accommodating victims?
The shelters are not enough. And again, I'm going to make a practical example of me being in Uppington and being particularly in a township called Rosedale, moving from one house to house, seeing the extent of drug abuse, seeing the extent of family breakup, seeing the extent and finding a 12-year-old, for instance, who lives in a shack, not a house, who lives in a shack, and in the shack there are 3 men who are in this shack, and there are 2 sisters who are in this shack with their own children, and the mother of this child is not there because unfortunately she is HIV positive and now she's in hospital, and you have a 12-year-old who clings to anybody who comes through. You can see that that child is being abused. But the issue is, if she's being abused, what are the family members saying about it? But what are the family members going to say when they're high half the time? And the issue is, when we got there, then we talk to the neighbors, we say to the neighbors, but you need to take responsibility also, because you are whispering that you think this 12-year-old is being abused. And immediately, for me as a Minister of Social Development, I then immediately said to the social workers who were with us, to the department at provincial and local level, we need to do something about this. And they said exactly, there is no place we can take her around here where the family can come and visit. We have to take her miles and miles away. So Penny, for me, we do need the shelters. But as a Minister of Social Development, believe me, I will not take any pride in saying, oh, we've got 2,000, 5,000 shelters. Because once you say that, you then are saying these people, the most of our people must be in shelters. I don't think so. I think we need to find a way of ensuring that within the communities, we create a conducive environment for women, create a conducive environment for children, create a conducive environment for all communities, because part of what I think is a problem, when people are left like that, they have no jobs, they've got nowhere to go, the little that they have, they're only thinking of coming together and maybe even spending the money on booze and something like that, or even the drugs. Because when you talk about the Northern Cape in particular, you talk about human trafficking. That's why we were there over the weekend. We talk about drug abuse and substance abuse in general. We do need the shelters as much as we possibly can, so that at least women can have a place to escape to, children can have a place to escape to.
So one of the issues, because also when you talk about shelters and children who are and women who are in distress, is the psychosocial programs and the trauma that obviously that comes with that. What kind of programs exist that can be able to sort of like help in those communities?
The Department of Social Development is responsible for the well-being of our people. We focus in the main on the most vulnerable because they've got less chances of taking care of themselves. And so as a department, we do have what we call psychosocial support that needs to be given to those that are in distress, especially those who are able to be taken to shelters. But that is even done including in the homes. When people need psychosocial support in the home, it is our responsibility as a Department of Social Development to do that. However, at the moment, we have the challenge of having enough social workers who can then be able to cover all the places. That's why I go back again to saying that if we are to deal with the scourge of gender-based violence and femicide and all other social ills, we need to have more social workers who can then be able to coordinate at street level. And I really insist that if we were to take our communities house to house, street to street, and we have plans of knowing what is happening within the homes, it's not about interfering in the home. It is about ensuring that first and foremost the well-being of everybody in the home is taken care of, which also extends to issues of health, issues of education, general issues of upliftment and life and livelihoods of our people.
Okay. So now in a recent study by your department, it shows that 80% of grant applications for social relief were Black Africans. And you visited various communities throughout this month. What are the 350 beneficiaries saying about the grant? I mean, what is it mostly being used for?
First and foremost, they are very thankful to the fact that government decided to have a package which is a broader package of responding to the challenges of COVID-19 and the impact of COVID-19, and the fact that many of them lost their jobs. But at the same time, while many lost their jobs, already there were many who didn't have anything. And so when COVID-19 came and President Cyril Ramaphosa announced the 350, people were very excited about the fact that they were going to be able to have something that they can, some cash in their hands, because this is cash in your hands and you've got a choice of what to do with it. The study clearly indicates that majority of the people spent their 350 on basics. Your milk, your sugar, your meal, just the basics that people need in the family. That is what the money is used for. But also in the research, before there was also a realization that in the first batch of the 350, majority of people who applied for it were males, and those who received it were males. More than 60% of them were males. So the department had to take a step back, and SASSA take a step back to say, why is that so when many of the people who are real caretakers of families and homes are women? Then it was realized that because some of them already receive the grant for the children and so forth, they were then not able to apply. But now, of the next batch that we have now, the majority of people who applied, because we then allowed caregivers to apply. We hadn't allowed caregivers in the previous time to allow. Now the majority of people who have applied are women. Not that we've got nothing against men getting the 350 if they don't have anything, because they also have to take care of themselves and their families, and the majority of them do take care of themselves.
Okay.
So that's why now we have more women who applied, and it's more women who are getting the 350.
Were there some like innovative ideas that like people were doing, you know, maybe trying to like start small businesses and things like that? I think that's one of the things that got highlighted in the survey. Can you share that with us?
Absolutely. On the very day that we're launching the research, there was one woman there who was brought in to come and explain how she used the 350 to start a furniture company, and everyone was like, 350 furniture company?
How?
The two don't mix. But here's an innovative young woman who decided, I have 350. Can I make the 350 make more money and work for me? Because then it means even in the future, I might not even necessarily go back and be looking for the 350 if I get the support for growing my business. And it is for this reason that as a Department of Social Development, we feel that we must look at the economic side of it. It's not only the one who came through. There were many others who are in the informal business who decided, I've got 350, let me keep it the first time and keep the second time and save more and use very little, so that I can go and buy more of the stuff that I make magwinya, or I do that, I go and buy the flour, and then it means that I'm going to increase my production. I'm very excited about those, and of course, having been a Minister of Small Business Development, I've already had the conversation with the Minister, the current Minister of Small Business Development, Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams, and I've said to her, those that have picked up an opportunity, those that see themselves as future entrepreneurs, let's work together and see how we can support them, because the future of job creation also lies on those that are able to be entrepreneurs. But it's beyond that, because if you look at informal business, some people might want to grow the business. Some people might just want to say, I need to make the profit in order to maintain and keep my family. So we need to support those. And I have already instructed the department to say, can we focus on the economic side of it? But also let's look at the public works, because even there we can be able to support people. So basically, I think that the 350 has brought opportunities for many, but the most important thing, we cannot afford hunger. We cannot afford poverty. We cannot afford to be the kind of a country that is looked at globally, and from an African perspective, we cannot afford to have people going to bed without food when actually the country can afford it.
Okay. So the month of October is Social Development Month, and as you crisscross the country from the youngest citizens and I think there was a lady who was 115 years old, that you also got to visit. What are some of the highlights of the programs, that stood out, that you got to interact with communities about and citizens throughout this campaign?
Firstly, as a department, we have to be focused on families, and obviously families is also working with other departments, because families is about healthy families. Families is about families that can have their children going to school, being educated and all. So we have families, and therefore we went to see the 150-year or 15-year-old in the Western Cape, and we were excited because she lives in a frail care center. And part of our responsibility, again, as a department, is to be able to support those centers and make sure that the elderly who are unable to stay home anymore because the people can't take care of them, they've got places where they can, in their twilight years, they can be in a comfort zone, and they can also be able to engage with others who are as old as they are. But also we are responsible for the gender-based violence programs, and again there we don't work alone. As I said earlier on, we connect to other departments. We're also responsible for community development, and community development, we have a special unit within the department that deals with community development, which therefore means we need to be able to look for programs that are empowering to communities, because we can't do everything for community. I don't believe that we are a government that just has to go around saying we're going to do this and do this for you without them also taking responsibility. We believe that working together with citizens and creating and building better communities is not a government alone responsibility. We all have to work together. But also we are responsible for population and development. It's one of the areas which I think we're not doing extremely well from a departmental point of view, because we've been focusing on the international side of it. Whereas in my view, population and development is about knowing and understanding where are your people, where are their needs, what is it that you need to do, what strategies and plans do you need to put in place to make sure that you know the numbers. Let's take the 350. One of the good things we did in the research that we did was to break it down. Who is getting the 350? What education level are they? How many of them are women? In which districts are they? Because once you start breaking it down like that, then it helps you to have research that tells you exactly where are your people, including the question that you asked earlier on, to say what do they use it for. It's in the research. It's a SNAP research. I think we still need to dig a little bit even deeper into it, because then it will give us very interesting figures which must not only be used by ourselves as the department, statistics that can be used by other departments looking for supporting our people.
Okay, so now November 1st is coming up. First-time voters, your message to those people who are going to the polls for the first time to go vote, what can you say to them?
Democracy comes with responsibility. And therefore, if you want to feel that democracy that comes with that responsibility, you've got to make your choice. And you make your choice because you want to make sure that you want to hold your choice accountable. You make your choice because you want to make sure that those people who probably you've been part and parcel of selecting, and I know in our side as the African National Congress, people have been responsible for the selecting of the candidates, and the candidates have been taken also to the community, within the community. I was in the Free State, where there was a big conflict between the community and those that have been selected. When you go to vote, you are exercising your democratic right. You are exercising your responsibility to say we are electing this government, or we are choosing this councillor because we want to hold this councillor accountable. Again, to the first-time voters, you cannot leave issues to other people without you participating. Because if you do so, you're going to be an armchair critic. You're going to sit there and be pointing fingers. Whereas if you know that you voted, you feel you have the authority, you have the responsibility, you have the authority, you put a party there, you put a candidate there, and you are going to be able to go out and hold that candidate responsible. But lastly, the building of democracy is not an overnight thing. Young people in particular today, I don't believe they're the so-called apolitical young people. I don't believe in that. I think that young people need to be given the right information so that they can make the right choices, the right motivation for why they have to go and vote and why they have to be participating in a democratic process, because it's also about building institutions of governance. Those institutions of governance cannot be built tomorrow to be destroyed the following day, and therefore first-time voters, which in the main I'm told they are going to be in the majority, this is their time to make the right choice, but also for their own future. It's not about electing people today. They will be elected tomorrow because they would have seen what their vote does. They will become the councillors, they will become the ministers, they will become anything in as far as government is concerned. They need to exercise it now and not wait for tomorrow.
Great stuff. Minister, thank you so much for chatting to us tonight. We really appreciate you taking time out of the campaigning and being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Well, there you have here on My ANC. I am Penny Libiani. Until then, good night.
Want water, electricity, sanitation, and refuse removal. Our people want protection against crime and gangsters. People want local government to deliver services that they need and support the local businesses that provide jobs and livelihoods. This is what South Africans want. We are the African National Congress, and we've been serving the people of this country for the past 27 years. Vote ANC Amandla!